Got concrete coming in 3 hours. That's lots of time. I've just got the aspect of setup that's called buttoning up. I've just got to button this up. That is, I've got to go around and do the little details that didn't have to be done prior to the inspection. A little wire here, another brace there, another nail here, lay a little dirt against the face of the forms. Just the little insurance moves that you make so you don't have problems in the middle of the pour, which is when you don't want problems. If you're just joining this series, these footings are not part of a house. They're part of the retaining and drainage structure around the perimeter of the lot so that we can, in a few months, pour the concrete for the house. But whether or not it's part of the house or part of the site work, it's still concrete, and concrete is always tricky. There are a lot of variables that could mess us up here today, and I've done everything that I could think of to minimize and control those variables. Most of the time you're going to hear me refer to concrete as mud. Mud is what we call it around here. If you hear me talk about mud, I'm talking about the concrete. The first item of business is to get the right amount of mud in the forms at the right place with a minimum of movement of the mud. And by that I mean you don't want to put too much here and have to shovel it down there. And you don't want to stop short and move the truck away and have to bring him back or shovel back to get up to the right grade. You want the right amount of mud in the right place. We're pouring a fairly low slump concrete here today. A lot of this is around a 3-inch. Some of it's a 5-inch, but most of it's 3 to 4. We have to vibrate this mud to get it fully in place and consolidated. A vibrator is really the best, and in some cases like this, virtually the only way to consolidate the concrete, which means bring all of the rock and all of the sand and all of the cement and all of the water into contact with each other. The vibrator instantly liquefies the mud and it falls as far as gravity will let it fall. One of the things that can happen as you vibrate, or for that matter as you're moving the truck, is you can hang up on the rebar and move it into the wrong space, bend it over, push it out of position. You can bang the truck into the form, or as you're vibrating down a big mound of concrete and it washes, that washing motion will push the rebar laterally unless it's secured. So we're not out of the woods yet. There's still plenty of ways to screw this up. When you finish a footing, that's almost a misnomer because every square inch of this footing is going to be buried. It's either going to be under dirt or concrete. The concrete where the wall is sitting, the dirt on both sides, it'll be below grade, no one will see it. But it still needs to be flat where the forms are going to sit, or I'm going to have real trouble setting those wall forms next week. These guys are going to use almost the same attention to detail with their floats, not trowels, but floats, in striking the surface of this footing off nice and flat, fairly smooth, where the wall sits, and about 6 inches on each side. So my whalers and everything associated with the forms have a nice, level, smooth substrate to work on. It's the same process as a slab or a driveway, but not as critical in the details around smoothness. On the lower footing, you saw the concrete come right out of the truck into the forms. We call this tailgating. And it doesn't cost much. If you can get the truck close enough to just pour right out of the chute, that's great. But there are plenty of times when you just can't. You just can't get the truck that close or you're going to break something trying. On the upper footing, we're using a pump, a line pump. This is Jeff Lorenzen, Brothers Concrete Pumping, and he's been pumping concrete for me for 18 years. He provides an extremely valuable service. that greatly simplifies the whole process of pouring concrete. You can get exactly the right amount of concrete in place exactly where you need it. You don't break anything. You can do it with a smaller crew because you don't have to shovel and drag and rake and move as much concrete in the form. He puts it exactly where you want it. So whether or not you can even save any money by pouring straight from the truck on a slab pour is a real question. But in any case, I use a pump about 70% of the time. Heck, maybe more. It's been quite a while. In fact, this is the first tailgate pour I've done probably in 3 or 4 years. A concrete pump is perhaps more than a lot of other machines trying to tear itself apart all of the time. The pressures are intense. The friction and the grittiness and the corrosive effect of what he's moving through his equipment and through his lines is just, I mean, concrete's about as nasty a product as there is in terms of friction and scratching and wearing things out. And so a concrete pump takes a lot of maintenance. One of the reasons that I'm always comfortable calling Jeff is because his pump doesn't break down in the middle of the job. I've had that happen a few times. It can be terribly expensive and end up in, protracted legal battles if it's on a big enough scale. In any case, this is a small town, so these finishers, the pumper, the truck drivers see each other sometimes multiple times every day, and certainly multiple times every week, and they're all good friends. Mutual trust and a real confidence that the other guy knows his job goes a long way towards making the job site atmosphere a lot better. That's one thing about pouring with this particular set of guys and pouring concrete service mud with concrete service drivers. There's never any fist fights. There's never any name calling. There's very rarely even any frustration. It's a pretty smooth and pleasant way to spend an afternoon, at least in as much as pouring concrete can be pleasant. Speaking of Umpqua Sand and Gravel, if you didn't catch it in a previous issue, they've donated all the concrete that you're seeing right here. They're a fantastic family-owned company and the best batch plant in this area by far. Now I know, and I have read in the comments, that it's hard to keep track and visualize where you're at in these videos. It's hard to tell what's up and what's down and the cardinal directions that I talk about and where the big footing is and where the little footing is. And I imagine that can be frustrating. So let me give you my word that as the series progresses, you're going to get more and more familiar with the site. Over time, you're going to understand where all these locations are and have a feel for what I'm talking about when I say on the street side or up the hill. In the meantime, just think about the topic at hand. Concentrate on what we're teaching and demonstrating, because when the house construction starts, when the footings are dug and the rebar is put in place and the next concrete pours start to happen in the house foundation itself, we'll be posting a copy of the plan so you can follow along. The stakes that were cast in that lower footing were hard to pull. They were in there 2 and 3 hours, and it was tough getting them out. And so as I was bringing them out, there was no danger of me disrupting the vertical pieces of rebar that they were close to. Not so with this. This concrete was put in about an hour ago. It's still about as hard as the back of my hand. So I'm putting little footprints in it, but that doesn't matter because it's going to bury back here. But what does matter is that when I'm banging these stakes around, pulling them, that I don't disrupt these verts. It's important that the concrete adheres and stays adhered to the vert all the way down so it doesn't compromise its development length and its ability to withstand the overturning moment on the wall that's going on there next. So I'm going to do more twisting than hammering on these and see if they'll come out without, yeah, they're going to come out. There's only about 12 inches of embedment. Thanks for watching. And if you're enjoying this series, will you please comment or emoji or thumbs up and share it with your friends, because we'd like for lots of people to be getting a look at how we do this in Southern Oregon.